Hi folks, welcome to my weekly show called We the People. Today's subject is going to be reclaiming our independence. I've seen a lot of things that are going wrong in our country lately and within the last years, and some time ago I started addressing the issue by learning as much as I could about politics. I went to New Mexico State University and I signed up for a course on U.S. Constitution. Well, this is the book that I had as my textbook, and even while I was at university, I realized that there's so much bias even on our university campuses. Now, the professor that I had claimed that he was unbiased, but he certainly was anything but unbiased, and it was all about oppression and talked about slavery like it happened yesterday. It just was too much to really handle. I lasted about 6 weeks, but I retained the textbook, and I've been teaching myself about the way our Constitution is supposed to run, but does not. Our country does not run according to the laws that all these elected officials swear an oath to the U.S. Constitution, and in our case, the New Mexico State Constitution. So we, in 1776, July 4th, actually it was July 2nd when it was done, but it was official July 4th, 1776, when our founders declared our independence from England. And that was 244 years ago. So I'm not going to read the whole Declaration of Independence, but I want to read key parts of it so that you can understand that there are parallels between what is going on now and what happened back then, and see if you pick up what I did. So, we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Originally, it was property, life, liberty, and property. I think they should have kept that one, but the pursuit of happiness is also very important. So, to that secure these rights, governments are instituted among men. Now, governments are instituted just so that we can keep these rights. Instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. You get that, folks? Consent of the governed. That means we tell them what to do, and we can get rid of them every election cycle. So we tell them how to govern us, a very few governing all of us with our consent. That whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, and from what I can see, our government has been destructive of the ends of our freedoms, it is the right of the people, that's us, to alter or to abolish it and to institute new government. Every election cycle, we have that opportunity to throw the bums out, to get the people out of office that aren't doing what we want, that don't control the anarchy that we see in our cities right now. This is very important, folks. It is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards, that would be in the form of legislators, for their future security. I think I forgot to mention that I'm running for New Mexico State Senate. Now, I willfully want to do this, but I'm willing to give up 4 years of my life to get paid nothing to represent you. And there's a lot of my friends that I know personally, Republicans, that are running to try and take back our country. So we are willing to work for you for nothing. Yes, we will get reimbursed for our travel expenses back and forth to Santa Fe when we're in session, but that's it, folks. We're working for nothing, for you. What you have to do is vote. Okay, I'll continue. So, such is now the necessity which constrains them to alter their former system of government. Re-elect the right people. So, back then in 1776, our founding fathers knew exactly what they were doing. This Declaration of Independence was really a declaration of war because they knew England was not going to give the United States its freedom. They relied on the United States. They wanted the United States to pay money because of the war that was being fought with France, I believe it was. But the United States was not getting representation. They were not able to, they left Europe because they didn't have freedom of religion, which we find that we have that problem right now. We have a governor that closes down our churches, and yet big box stores like Walmart and Sam's, which we need, they're open. But our churches are closed down? Are they trying to get rid of religion? They've already gotten rid of God out of government. They've gotten rid of God out of our schools. How far do we go, folks? When do we finally stand up? This is our time, right now. Okay, so, like I said, the new colonies knew if they didn't win the war, they would be hanged. Their wives would, I don't know what would happen to them. Their children, I don't know what would happen to them. Their property would be taken away. These people put their lives on the line for our freedom, to declare our independence from England. Now, that was our founding fathers. They were fighting, they knew they were fighting the most powerful military strength in the world, the British Empire. And yet they were willing to do it. 13 colonies on the east coast of the United States were willing to risk everything. They had families they had to worry about. All they're asking us to do is to continue that. And we can only continue it if we get involved in government, in politics, understand who the legislators are that are in office. Have they been doing what we wanted to? I don't think so. And when people step up that want to represent you folks for nothing, doing our civic duty, you better wake up and pick the right people. Because if not, we're going to keep going downhill until we don't have a country anymore. I don't know if you've been watching the news, and if you haven't seen the riots that go on in Seattle, they took over a portion of the city. There were murders, rapes, robberies inside that secured area that police were thrown out of. They took over a police station. If you're not watching One American News Network or Newsmax, you're probably not getting the truth. Don't be watching CNN and MSNBC unless you want left-leaning propaganda. And I'm not trying to beat up on the Democrats. I have many friends that are Democrats. But the party, the once reasonable Democratic Party, has been taken over by, I won't call them progressives, I call them regressives, regressive socialists. They have taken over the Democratic Party. That's why we have the rioting. That's why Black Lives Matter and Antifa are stepping in. Okay, let me continue on here. He, that is the King of England they're referring to, is at this time transporting large armies of foreign mercenaries to complete the works of death, desolation, and tyranny already begun with circumstances of cruelty and perfidy, that means treachery, scarcely paralleled in the most barbarous ages. Now, to me, that's what was going on then, but I see that we have domestic anarchy going on in our country. And I believe that that domestic anarchy is probably fueled and paid for by outside entities. One, I believe, is George Soros. Got tons and tons of money. If you don't know about George Soros, I believe, was a Hungarian Jew, and he was actually working with the Nazis during Germany's occupation of the Jewish communities, murdering Jewish people, Poles. And this George Soros, even now, has no remorse whatsoever for what he did to help the Nazis destroy his own people. So this is the kind of person that is fueling, with all of these millions, billions of dollars, I guess, I'll bet you he's funding Antifa and Black Lives Matter. So you have to wake up, folks. This is not a grassroots, what would you say, picketers or making complaints or, you know, my friends Walt Rubel and Peter Goodman think that this was grassroots. This is just protesters. It's not protesters. These are anarchists. And if you don't wake up, did you ever hear the story about the frog in the pot of water? Now the frog's playing in this big pot of water, and the water's nice and cool, and he's just loving it there. He's in his element. Well, somebody, it turns out the pot was on a stove. Somebody turned on the heat. So now the fire is building under this pot of water, and the frog doesn't even realize the incremental changes in temperature that he's swimming in. And he's thinking, well, it's a little uncomfortable, you know, a little warm. And it goes on and on, but it's so gradual, he doesn't realize what's going on. Until he gets to a point where he's so lethargic, he has no strength. He cannot get out of this situation. So he slowly had to die. He was boiled to death in the water that he thought was his safe sanctuary. Don't be like the frog in the pot, folks. Wake up to what's going on. And you can make the difference. Our founders, they were risking their lives. They were out fighting. They would leave their families and fight the British. All we have to do is vote. And you have to be registered to vote. And if you have a problem with getting registered, give me a call. My phone number's on the screen. I'll be glad to come and help you get registered. I'll take you to the county building to get you registered. We will make sure you get a registration card that'll say exactly what party affiliation you want. We'll make sure all the information is correct, and then you will be able to vote. And the only way to make sure your vote is going to count and count correctly is to go in person. Now, I understand that there's people that need absentee ballots. Maybe they can't get out, but that's okay. Again, call me, and I will make arrangements so that you can get your absentee ballot. I will make sure that you understand how to make out the absentee ballot. I will make sure that that absentee ballot is put in the mail if you want me to do it, or I can deliver it for you. I can get a note from you saying it's okay for me to drop it off at the county building. I'll make sure, and I have people that are willing to help me make sure that your vote counts and counts the way you want it to. But the best way to make sure your vote counts is to vote in person. And there's no excuse, unless you're impaired or an invalid, to go in person and vote. Even if you can drive, you can pull up to a voting location. I was a presiding judge twice and a judge of elections once. We will make accommodations to come out, take your information, get your ballot, bring it out, you make out your ballot, we take it in, we put it in the machine. We can make arrangements for you to vote in person at curbside. But most people are able to vote in person. We have voting locations, early convenience locations, and we'll be putting this information out as we get closer to November. Those locations are all over the city and the county. And it doesn't matter where, we used to have to go to a certain location to vote within your precinct. That's not the case anymore. With your information that's in the database, through the Secretary of State, we can find out exactly who you'll be voting for. You will make this ballot out, you will submit that ballot, everything will be fine. And voting convenience centers, early voting, voting day is a little busy, but still we have so many places that you can vote. There should be no reason why you don't get out and vote. So, like I said, our founding fathers put their lives on the line. All we have to do is vote. But I would say this, that you really need to know who you're voting for. Now, I can give you my background. I'm a retired Philadelphia policeman. The reason I got into politics is because I detest a bully. I didn't like the bullies on the ball field, and I usually held my own, fist fighting. I didn't like the bullies when I was a policeman. They were pretty bad. Murderers, rapists, robbers. But this is a different kind of bully in our politics. These people will take your money and smile, and they'll lie to you. You got to know who's telling you the truth, who's not blowing smoke up your butt. Well, I won't. You can check on my record. Call the Philadelphia Police Department. I forget the number. MU6-1776, area code 215. Might be the same. But you can find out about my history. I was also, 13 years, I worked at the U.S. Postal Service in New Jersey as an electronic technician. Now, I don't have a track record in voting, but the fellow that I'm running against, he does have a track record. Check out Bill Souls and see how he votes. Does he vote for abortion? Does he vote for open borders? Does he vote to try and take your guns away? I think you'll find that he does. That's not me, folks. Okay, I'm going a little long here, but it's so important. We're going to take a short break, and we'll come back, and I'm going to tell you an interesting story about how the clergy was involved in the 1776 era, and they were the ones that created the revolution. Be right back, folks.
Horizon Granite is here. We'll come to you to customize your kitchen and bathroom with beautiful countertops and cabinets. Find out more at horizongranite.com. Call us at 575-650-3180.
Horizon Granite is here.
It's here.
Make yourself a beautiful home.
Hi, I'm Ray Bamberg with Here on Earth. I would like to invite you for a free hearing evaluation to our office. We've been here in southern New Mexico for 34 years helping people hear better.
They've stormed beaches and freed countries. They've raised our flag and our hope. They've been called leathernecks. They've been called devil dogs. But above all, they're called Marines.
Hi folks, welcome back to We the People. I'm Dave Gallus. I am running for New Mexico State Senate in District 37, and I want to fix this country. I want to fix this state, and I want to fix this county and this city. And I can only do it with your help. What I'm trying to do is educate you as to what's going on and what we can do about it. The education is our history and the history of what our founding fathers did. We're celebrating the 4th of July today. This is our founding fathers put their lives on the line, the lives of their family, their property, their sacred honor. And I want to just read the end of the Declaration of Independence. Well, maybe not quite the end, but we therefore, the representatives of the United States of America in General Congress, assembled, appealing to the Supreme Judge, that's God, of the world, for the rectitude of our intentions, do, in the name and by authority of the good people of these colonies, solemnly publish and declare that these united colonies are and of right ought to be free and independent states. That was important back then, obviously. They were fighting the British Empire, the most powerful military in the world, and it's important now because we're losing our country to domestic anarchy paid for by outside agencies. And the end is, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, of God, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. Our founding fathers were very religious people. And that is what began this whole revolution, actually. It started. I'm going to read you a little excerpt. This is the true story. On Sunday morning, January 21st, 1776, Pastor John Muhlenberg climbed into his pulpit in Woodstock, Virginia, to preach. In his black clerical robe, the traditional dress of an 18th century preacher's, Muhlenberg preached from the 3rd chapter of Ecclesiastes. He read how there was a time for all things. There's a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to harvest. Then his voice began to rise and he said, there's a time for war and a time for peace. There is a time for all things, a time to preach and a time to pray, a time to preach from the pulpit. But there is also a time to fight, and that time has come. Then he did something his congregation did not expect. He removed his clerical robes, revealing a colonial officer's uniform underneath. Muhlenberg then stepped down from his pulpit and challenged the men of his congregation to join him in the fight for liberty. Just a few days before, he had been commissioned by General George Washington to raise a regiment from the Woodstock area. As Muhlenberg walked down the aisle and out the door of his church, the drum began to roll outside. One by one, the men of Muhlenberg's congregation filed out of the auditorium and volunteered to follow their courageous pastor. Those pastors were not afraid to step up and preach from the pulpit. They preached about declaring independence from Britain. Again, the most powerful military force in the world at that time. Can we do any less? We need our preachers, our shepherds, to step up and speak out. And I have spoken in a couple different churches I'll be glad to speak anywhere, to any church, to any group. But our pastors are our shepherds that need to speak to the people about what's going on. They've taken God out of our government. They've taken God out of our schools. How far do we let them go, folks? Really? I want God in my government, in my schools, directing me as your state senator as to what I should do. Morally, what should I do? I'm going to read a couple excerpts about the black-robed ministers and preachers and the black-robed regiment. The black-robed regiment was the name of the British placed on the courageous and patriotic American clergy during the founding era. And it was a backhand reference to the black robes that they wore. Significantly, the British blamed the black-robed regiment for American independence. How about that? They started the independence that gives us our freedom today. Our clergy does, our courageous clergy. And rightfully so, modern historians have documented that. Okay. But it was not just the British who saw the American pulpit as largely responsible for American independence and government. Our own leaders agreed. For example, John Adams rejoiced that, quote, the pulpits have thundered, and specifically identified several ministers as being among the characters the most conspicuous, the most ardent, and the most influential in awakening and revival of the American principles and feelings that led to the American independence. A body of men, clergy, were preeminent in the attachment to liberty. The pulpits of the land rang with the notes of freedom. The American Quarterly magazine in 1833 wrote that. The whole thing is, folks, our clergy needs to step up and we need to step up. As I said, the most important thing we can do is to vote. Know who the people are that you're voting for. Know who the people are that are in office now and what their track record is. In my case, it's Bill Soules. Bill Soules has been the vice chairman and now the chairman of the Education Committee in the Senate. He is the top legislator when it comes to education in New Mexico. Now, I have nothing against Bill Soules personally. Seems like a nice fella, has a nice smile. But our education system has failed our students. And that's only one aspect. When he and the Democrats, and I have a lot of Democratic friends, but the Democratic Party has been taken over by the regressive socialist wing of the party. It's no longer the Democratic Party that you may remember. The party of traditional values that I hold true. So you have to understand, you might be registered Democrat, but do you have conservative values? And conservative values is fair play, honesty, integrity. It's really not about division, and all I see in the Democratic Party is division now. I see them pitting the sexes against each other, the We Too movement. I see pitting the races against each other, the Black Lives Matter, Antifa. These are communist organizations. Why is the Democratic Party doing that? And the Democratic Party wants open borders, especially now with the COVID-19 virus. I mean, Ellis Island was a perfect location way back in, I don't know, the 20s, 30s, 40s, to bring in immigrants that wanted to be part of our country. So, Ellis Island, you had to get there by boat. You would have the people quarantined. They would be checked to make sure they wanted to become American citizens, that they could bring productivity to the Americas, or North America, trades or whatever, that they didn't come with diseases. With open borders on our southern border, we're New Mexico. Down at the southern end of New Mexico, we have an open border, had an open border. If it wasn't for our president, we'd still have an open border. I was down on the border. I saw the hole at the Anapra gate. They called it a gate. The wall stopped abruptly and it was all open. People could come through, thousands of people at a time. If it wasn't for our president, they'd still be pouring in. And our Democratic House of Representatives would not give him any money for the wall. So he had to go around that so he could protect us. That's the Democratic Party of now. You have to wake up, folks, and understand this is not your party. One of my heroes is Isabella Solis. I'm running in Senate District 37. She's running in House District 37 against Joanna Ferrari. Joanna Ferrari believes in abortion up to the time of birth. Now, I don't know about you, but I will always vote on the side of life. I will never judge any woman that has to go through that challenge. That I can't imagine the pain that those women must go through to think that the only option that they have is to abort a child. The child that could be their greatest gift. And I'm not judging them. I want to support them and make sure they know all that can happen physically, emotionally. I knew a 65-year-old woman that regrets having an abortion when she was a teenager. She's never gotten over that. She has never forgiven herself for that. I don't judge, so I don't have any problem with forgiving that. I know God's forgiven her for that, but she can't forgive herself. She needs healing. And the young girls need to be told what the issues are. We had a movie here in town, Unplanned. I would suggest that to every young person, including young men, because the young men need to take responsibility for their actions. So what I'm saying is that we have responsibility to how we should vote, who we should vote for, know what the issues are that we're voting for. I'll give you as much information as I have about me. You can look me up. Look up Bill Soules, the guy I'm running against. Look up Isabella Solis, who changed from Democrat because she'd no longer be a Democrat. It didn't follow her belief system. She's a traditional conservative in her heart. Okay, folks, I think that's about it for today. Next week should be another good one. I think I'm going to try and get Isabella Solis back on the show with me this time next week. So I'll see you next week. Don't forget, you got to get registered to vote. Give me a call. I'll help you get registered. If you don't vote, you have no voice. So see you next week, folks. Thanks for tuning in, and we will solve the problems in New Mexico, Doña Ana County, and Las Cruces. See you next week.